Okay, well, welcome to our first video in this series of just, chit chats, discussions, talks, what have you. These videos will be a bit more free flowing, a little less structured than our review videos.
And by less structured, absolutely no structure at all.
No structure. Just fuck it, just say anything. We're not even gonna talk about board games. No, I'm just kidding.
It's all about politics.
Just throw a loop in there. So each video will kind of pick a topic to kind of give us a loose idea to
Direction.
talk about. Yeah, to give us a little bit of a little bit of a structure, just so we can focus. But I know I wanted to bring on guests eventually as we keep going, and I think this platform is probably definitely a lot more conducive, especially to other social media board game people that we'd love to have on. And this is definitely a lot more like podcast like, so just sit back, close your eyes, and just listen to our soulful, moody voices.
Please don't look at us.
Please
don't look at us. Close your eyes.
Please, I'm blushing. Stop it.
If this gets released as a video, it's just going to be a big black screen over top of our video.
That's right.
So you can't see anything.
As I don't know if anyone's watched our first review video, I'm Ryan, and today I have a special guest here on with me. Please welcome Cole Whirl. Cole, it's nice to have you.
Just because we share the same last name, Ryan.
I'm just kidding.
Nice transition.
This is my co-host, Keegan Cole. Welcome, Keegan. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Good. Well, sort of. I didn't have anyone else. So what I kind of want to do in the beginning of these videos is I don't know, chat with my co-host a bit, or our guest, and find out a little about themselves and why they love board gaming so much. Why don't you tell everyone kind of when did you start getting into board gaming? What age were you around when you started?
Like the modern hobby board gaming, or in general?
Or
both?
Both. Let's delve into it. Give us the rundown.
Okay, well, when I was 5 or 6, slightly shorter than I am now,
That's right.
we were both short men, so this is appropriate for both of us. I had this really dumb game called Cooties that I was obsessed with.
This is great.
Maybe younger. 5 or 6 might be too old for this game if you look it up. It's just like, all it is a die rolling game, and you have to roll a die, and depending on what number you get, that's a body part for the cootie you get. And the first person to build their cootie is the winner. And so the whole game was just luck. But there was the same company, I think it was Hasbro, they had another game called Ants in Your Pants.
Yeah,
that was the same.
Yeah.
You know that one? You have to flick the ants into the overalls.
Yeah.
So that was my first dexterity game. Yeehaw.
Okay.
But I've been playing games like that as long as I can remember, and video games of course too. But tabletop hobby got really, really, really heavily into it. Probably my second or third year in college.
Okay.
I think the main thing that really got me going on it, my best friend and I, we both bought Catan and an expansion, so just like every other stereotypical modern gamer, it was Catan.
I know, I was going to say, just like everyone else on how they got into
just like everybody else. But, I think what really started the, obsession of buying games, because, we were very content with playing Catan for a bit. I used to listen to Game Grumps a bunch, which they're still around, but they used to have an episode or a series called Table Flip, where they would have different board games, and they would bring some guests on to play games with them, and I got really obsessed with listening to those,
Okay.
And the first 2 games I watched them play were Shadows over Camelot and Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Okay.
And immediately after I watched those 2 episodes, then that next day I found a hobby shop a town away from us and bought both of them.
Nice. Okay.
And immediately wanted my friends to play that night, and we played both games that night, and then it's just been spiraling out of control since.
Okay. Was all this before or after you met Kat?
This was all way before I met Kat.
Okay.
My wife's name is Kat.
My wife.
My wife. This is Borat 2 coming out in 2 weeks.
I know, I
Get
saw
ready
that.
for it.
I need to watch that trailer.
They just dated this episode. I made a mistake. You can't listen to this anymore. You know what?
Oh, no.
When we recorded this, now it's pointless.
Damn it. All right, well.
Fuck it, delete it. No, before I met Kat and I met when she already knew I was well deep into the hobby.
Okay.
And at that time, too, I was also playing TCGs, so she also knew me as a trading card fool. So
Okay.
Nothing has been a surprise for her at this point.
Sure. And what game did you get her into the hobby with?
Probably the same one. I said, like, Shadows over Camelot and Betrayal were really important to me, and Catan. Fun fact about Catan, the guy that made it lives in my hometown in Germany.
Really?
And his son is friends with my cousin.
Oh,
So that's
dang,
weird.
okay.
Yeah, that's a cool little thing. They live in Darmstadt.
So why don't we have free Catans right now? Why aren't we just loaded?
Free Catans? A pile in the back. Use them as tables. But I think the one that got her to really like games, because I took her to meet my parents at one point. We played Ticket to Ride together because my mom really likes Ticket to Ride. But then the game that I played with her that she was like, this is great, was Castles of Burgundy.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's still like my go-to standard of if anyone asks me, like, I want to get into the hobby, what game should I play with my significant other, that's my go-to one to pick.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great one to bring people in.
It's so ugly. It's ugly as hell. It's the worst looking game. Both editions of it look like total shit. But the design is great. The design in that game is amazing.
Yeah. So you've been collecting for quite a while now, and where is the size of a collection at right now?
I think you and I have talked about this before, and I feel like other people can relate to. COVID has not been a good time for board gamers, mainly because we can't play with anybody unless it's online. But I don't know if I'm in the camp of like a majority or minority, but if I'm going to play a game online or rather play a video game, like I want to play a board game at the table in person.
Yeah. So
to cull the urge, we just buy a bunch and just hope we can play them at some point during this pandemic. So the pandemic's been really bad for that for me in a good way, where I've gotten a lot of my Grail games I've been wanting. But I'm right now, including expansions, I think I'm around 200, 201.
Okay. Yeah. I'm trailing right behind you. I gotta input all my new ones into BGG, but goddamn, this COVID, this situation is just like skyrocketed. That keep buying new ones. That damn shelf of shame just keeps growing.
Shelf of opportunity.
That's
be optimistic about it. You'll get to them at some point, or you'll be like me and be like, I haven't played this yet, and just sell it.
Yes. And so tell me what. Give us either your top or top 2 favorite designers.
Top 2 favorite designers. Shoot. You gave one away already, Cole. Cole Worley from Leader Games or Really Good Games. He's the designer that if I see he's designed something and it goes on Kickstarter or just like direct to retail, I'm probably just going to insta-buy it. I don't have to look anything up about it. I'm just going to get it.
Yeah.
Root is so good. That's my favorite game ever is Root. And
it's still your top ones?
It's
very top?
It's number one, followed by Castles of Burgundy.
Okay.
And then Pax Pamir is the second edition is amazing. Like, he did a great job with that, and just excited for Oath. And then second, it's not one designer, it's the team, because it's only 2 of them, but anything from Splotter, Splotter Spell and just obsessed with. Their games are great. Their Big Six are such good designed games.
Yeah.
Unlike that sentence, they're well designed games. Just
I mean,
anything with them that they're going to come out in the near future, I can see myself trying to pick up. It's 100% worth the cost for their games.
This whole summer, you've been collecting all of the Splatter.
I got all Big Six now.
Like every day on the Facebook groups, just who's got this other Splatter game?
Yeah, Zimbabwe and Indonesia were the hardest ones to find, but
yeah,
finally made it happen.
Nice. And so, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna keep both copies?
Both copies.
The new Zimbabwe.
They don't change anything. They just do direct reprints. It's not like they're like upgrading anything. Like it's just gonna be the same game. They've done that. Like Antiquity, I think, has gone through 3 reprints, and then Rows and Boats just had the 20th anniversary edition come out last year, and those were just direct reprints. There's nothing different about it. They kept the unique art and everything. Like their games are too good to like about. Their games are so good they don't need to change anything as it is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? We forgot to discuss a little of our what we're calling this chit chat. We had some ideas. I mean, some of my basic ones were just like specular talk, specular discussions, but they were pretty lame. And you had some better ones.
We got spectacular, which sounds like it could be like a thing at a circus. But I think perSPECtive is something I think is a nice, easy, simple name, catchy. You can put the name of specular games right there in the middle with spec.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice little quick thing.
I like it. I think that's something we're gonna be going with.
Cool.
I like it.
Well, welcome to perSPECtive.
This is ASMR.
You got quieter getting closer to the camera because that mic isn't on.
I know. I'm doing it for the recording. This is for ASMR. This is board game ASMR that we're doing. And here we go. Into our first.
We're gonna read you all the rules. It's really slowly out loud.
Really?
To civilization.
Really slowly. To civilization, please.
Or through the ages.
Please begin.
Welcome to Through the Ages. Okay, we got enough of that.
Okay. We're done with this. Okay. We're done with the ASMR portion. It was important.
We'll call it Specular Murmur.
Specular Murmur. Specular Whispers.
There needs to be a sexy sax solo in there.
So our first topic that we wanted to discuss was obviously with COVID, things are quite different. We can't gather in the large groups anymore, and we're kind of stuck to smaller groups or playing online. So we figured a really good topic would be games to be playing at 2-player. And that doesn't necessarily mean 2-player games, just games that we really love that are fantastic at 2 players. We each agreed on kind of 5 games that we'd bring and talk about here. I don't know. Do you want to start with your number 1?
I'm sure number 1. I wanted to go from 5 up.
All right, fine. That's fine.
Save best for last.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with number 5.
Okay. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll just say up front, Castles of Burgundy is not on this list, even though it should be, but I figured I'd bring it up at some point anyway in this conversation, so I just didn't include it.
I have a feeling that 2 of our games are going to overlap. I'm guessing right now.
I'm guessing 1.
1? Okay.
I'm guessing only 1.
Okay.
Okay, so what I tried to do with my 5 was kind of vary it up. This isn't necessarily the 5 that I think are the best for 2-player. These are, I think, 5 games that have something different going for them that all work really well 2-player.
Okay, yeah.
So I will start with number 5, which This one typically is a solo game, but my wife and I really like this as a two-player game. It has two-player rules, but it wasn't built to be two-player, but it works really well either way.
Okay.
And that is this guy, Onirim.
Nyrim. I've not heard of this one.
It's from this designer named Shadi Torby. He has a whole series of games in the Oniverse games. They're all solo games, or they have multiplayer or two-player rules in them as well, but they are all built to be solo-player games.
Okay.
And this one and Sylveon are my favorites, but this one I think is the one that works the best as a two-player game. So all you're trying to do in this one is you are stuck in a dream, and there's a deck of cards, and you're trying to get out of the dream by unlocking doors by getting keys. So you are basically trying to build this chain of cards in front of you that are in a pattern. They all have to be like same color or with different symbols, same symbols. Can't remember exactly because it's been a bit since we played it, but you have to then unlock, once you get a certain number of your pattern down, you have to then unlock it with a key to open a door. And then at some point, though, in the game, too, you'll draw into nightmares, and nightmares can totally ruin your game plan and make you get rid of a door you already unlocked and put it back on the deck or discard it. It makes you discard your entire hand, get a new hand. So it's a little bit luck of the draw, but you go into it knowing exactly how many cards of each type are in the game. Especially with how many times my wife and I play, we kind of just know, like, it might get to a point where, like, well, we know this was the last blue card, we can't win anymore.
Yeah.
So we just start over. And that's the other good thing about this too. The game takes like 15 minutes.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's really quick. The setup is maybe 5 minutes tops. Rules teach is like 2 minutes. Like, it's such a quick, easy, get it out, teach it, set it up, play it, and then play it again.
And what kind of table presence does it have? Is it large? Is it pretty compact?
It's not bad. Like, for like the footprint, it's you could play this at a coffee shop at a table. Like,
just what I was gonna get at. Yeah. Is this something that you can bring with you and kind of while you're waiting for your meal?
Yep, that's our go-to game that we keep in our bag when we go eat anywhere. I mean, not so much going out right now, but when we do go out, and when we did go out, this was something one of us had in our backpacks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's my number 5.
Interesting. Okay. My number 5 is actually one that I don't own. It's the only one that I don't own. But I played with Max last month or something. I thought it was really good. When I was over at Good Games, I was looking for it, and I was actually telling Lauren about it, and probably the next week she went out and bought it. But that game is Targi.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is probably my only game on the list that is an actual, like, two-player game designed for 2 players. And it's pretty simple. There's a 5x5 card grid on the table, and you have 2 meeples, essentially, 2 workers, that you will be placing on the outer edge of these boards to kind of create the where the 2 lines meet, and that'll be your actions. Now I think about it, it's wow. Why am I spacing? It's not 2.
You get 3 workers.
3
you can
workers,
put around the outside. Yeah, you have 2 cross sections.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And essentially, you're trying to gain the resources by those connecting paths, trading those resources in for victory points, getting it's a set collection as well, so you're kind of collecting some of the different symbols of the cards, the different oases, the different locations that you'll end up getting victory points at the end of the game for. I think there's even, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like end game point cards that you get.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it's also, like you said, the set collection.
Yeah. And I really like that this game is definitely a more mean game, as people call it, as you are kind of like trying to block each other while also get the resources or specific card that you want, but it's definitely like watching what your opponent's doing and playing around that, and strategizing. Yeah, which lines am I trying to go for and connect, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I've only got to play it once, but I was looking for it just to get for myself. And
Well, if you want to play it again, I have it.
oh, great, yeah.
And it also has an expansion too, which is great. So if you play the base game
Yes.
enough, the expansion comes with a different deck you can swap in.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that's my number 5.
Cool. Let's snake draft it. You go again. Do your number 4.
Number 4. Let me do some quick editing.
Some Wayne's World.
Okay, so my next game is actually one that you and I have played so many times.
Is this the one that you thought was going to be a crossover?
Yes.
I'm surprised it's not.
It is. Res Arcana. It's very Magic-esque. A lot of very similarities in how this card game gets played. You have in this one though, a small deck in which you are using resources to play out and trying to combo those as best that you can to get resources, to then use resources to gain the victory points. And what I really like about the 2-player is that it goes pretty quick, whereas when I noticed when we played with 4 people, it takes so long between each of your turns that it just didn't feel the same when you and I would just play, because we can get through a game in 10, 15 minutes and then get to like play out a whole bunch of different drafting styles, which is a lot of fun, almost like a tournament style, but like different ways of drafting we've had a lot of fun with. And even our speed rounds were
speed rounds are kind of nuts.
Yeah, like 2-minute game, 5-minute, less than 5-minute games were great. But it's definitely one that is, if you like your Magics, your Yu-Gi-Oh, your Pokemon, it's definitely one of it's that just in a smaller, compact version that the designer did a really good job of balancing pretty well. There are some pretty sick combos that you can do, and definitely helps to have him put out expansions to kind of see what new metas that you can create, because you definitely start creating some metas when you know, like when you're drafting,
There's definitely 2 cards that anytime you and I see that card, it gets drafted immediately. We don't even look at the rest of the cards we got.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And especially the even the location cards, the ones where you get points, you're just like, that Death Boy one, I'm taking. Like, that's like, I'm going death route. Just,
I think the only thing with... I love playing that game 2-player. I think the only thing that it, like, doesn't lack, but something that you get less of with the 2-player game that you get with 3 and 4-player is there are some cards that are like, when you do this, your opponent gets this, or for every one of these that your opponent has, you get something in return. And having more, like, when you have more players, there's more of an opportunity for you to gain something outside of your turn, or you to target a player because they have more of a certain resource that you're trying to copy or like benefit off of.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not guaranteed that those cards are even going to show up in the game at all.
And there's not a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
To that it's going to happen every time.
Right.
But I noticed, like, with more players though, attacking becomes a lot more of a thing, because now you just got a lot more cards that are out there attacking, and you're definitely losing a lot more resources than a 2-player one. It's a bit easier to kind of like defend off the attack when it's only one other person, and there's just been games where just like, God damn, I keep losing these resources because like I can't defend against all of you. Like, this is ridiculous. This
3 dragons and it can't do anything.
Great, cool. Thank you. This is great. Yeah. So I definitely I prefer Res as a 2-player game.
That's a solid choice.
Yeah.
I agree with Res. But sorry, it's not going to be a crossover. I had a feeling that was going to be one of the ones. I guarantee I know what the other one that you think it's going to be, because I 100% have it over here.
Okay.
but it's going to be a bit before I get to it.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Keegan's number 4.
My number 4, another card game. Surprise. I really like card games, and it might just be because of the TCG player in me. I was playing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Even as an adult. But one of my other favorite mechanics in games, besides card games in general, are multi-use cards. So, this is a more extreme card game called Innovation.
Innovations, okay.
Innovation is surprisingly enough, a Civ game. You are building a civilization out of cards. And there are a lot of cards in the game, and there's 10 different ages you can get to. And every age, the cards get more and more ridiculous. Every card in the game is unique. It's over 150 cards, I think, just in the base game. And there's 4 expansions, and each one also has another additional 150 cards.
Good God.
And they all each add a new mechanic into the game.
Okay. Yeah.
So the decks of cards are set out on the table like in a clock. So with all the 1 cards and all the 2 cards, and so you are drawing cards off of the level 1 age. And then once you get a level 2 card in your Civ somehow, there's cards that let you cheat out higher leveled Civ cards. Then you get to start drawing from the level 2 deck. You always draw off the deck of your lowest Civ card in your tableau.
Okay.
So then it keeps going up, and if a deck runs out, like if all the 1 cards are out, but you can only draw 1 card, so you automatically just start drawing level 2 cards. And there's cards in level 10 that just say you win the game when you play it.
That's right. You were telling me about this before. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole game is overpowered and stupid, and it's great. And every card also has symbols on it, like these factories down here, or like this crown. And you're trying to build out your civilization. There's 5 different colors of cards and all these different types of symbols. And if you do an action, this is the cool part of the game, and why I never want to play more than 2-player ever in my life, is you do an action, and in this game they're called dogmas. If your opponents, plural, if you're playing with more than 2 people, which don't, if they have that's every action's associated with a symbol. If their civilization has equal to or more symbols than your civilization does, they also get to take that action.
Okay.
And they get to take it before you take your action. But then for every person that does take the action, you get to draw an extra card. So you cycle through the game really, really quick.
Okay.
And you can also attack people with I demand effects. And they just have to do something, and they don't have a choice. They have to do it.
Okay.
But if they have symbols equal to or more than the symbol associated with that, they block it entirely, and that doesn't affect them at all. So the whole game is you're trying to build your engine up, and you can do some really stupid combos in this game that just break the game. And you're also trying to be like, shit, Ryan has 7 factories out, and all of his I demand effects are factory things, and I have 0. I need to start building factories up somehow so I can block his effects off. Or I need to find a card that lets me steal his cards from under him. Because the whole game then, too, is you're trying to score your cards to get points. And if you get a certain number of points, you get to take an achievement card. And the first person to achieve six achievements, I believe, is the winner. And there's also special achievements that are, if you do a very unique thing in the game, you get to take that unique achievement. So this is a game I play on... Like, one of the few games I will play online because it takes care of the fiddly keeping track of how many symbols you have for you. Like, it just tracks it for you on the side.
Okay.
So my friend back in Kansas, Chris, him and I will hop on Board Game Arena every once in a while and play like 5 games of Innovation in a row.
Okay.
It takes a bit to learn because there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
But it is a wild game because there is a lot happening, and you think you're coming up with something good, and then your opponent just plays this card that ruins everything out of nowhere. Like, it's great with how overpowered it is.
Great.
Yeah. If you liked the designer Carl Chudik, I want to say is his last name, from Asmodee Games, he is also the designer of Glory to Rome.
He also was doing Aegean Sea, right? That hasn't... I don't know if it's actually going to come out or not. I
think you're right, yeah.
Carl, yeah.
If you can get your hands on a copy of Glory to Rome, which is really hard to get, but if you do have Glory to Rome is the one I suggest playing with 3 or more people, and Innovation being the 2-player game.
Okay.
Just because it's easier to... Glory to Rome is a bit more easy to manage with a group than Innovation is.
Okay. It's a good one.
Thanks. We'll have to play it someplace. I realize you haven't played it yet.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, so...
Yeah, we'll have to try it.
We also need to replay... We need to actually get a full game of Age of Civilization.
Through the Ages?
Through the Ages, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
I was thinking about it a lot last night. I'm like, damn it.
So was I. It was one of those like few games where I go to bed thinking about it after playing it.
Okay, so number 3. Three.
Back to me again?
Yeah.
Okay. So legacy games.
Okay.
Legacy games are always, at least according to online, a lot of the time they're the best when you play it at max player count. Strictly because it's a game you only get to experience once. You could play a legacy game again, but you have to buy a new box or unsticker all of Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
And you already know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know the surprises, unless you play Gloomhaven, which has a bajillion things of content. But it's always the best with multiple people. But this legacy game, I think, works really well as a 2-player game, and it also, you don't have to throw it away when you're done with it, because it actually becomes its own unique copy of a game anyway.
Okay.
And
I'm not sure. I was going to take a guess, but I'm not sure.
Okay. It's Machikoro Legacy.
Right. Okay.
So, another game that my wife and I like playing, and she stomps me in. It's a bit luck because you're rolling dice, and the dice dictates what you're getting. But the part of the game, which I like dice games, and I know that a lot of people hate praying to RNGesus for getting a die roll that they need, but I like dice games where you can mitigate your luck somehow. And this game, you mitigate your luck by building in structures in your city that balance out the odds for you. Like if you're gonna have if you're rolling 1 die and you have a bunch of things that require a 5 as your die roll, you're probably not gonna get it. You have a 1 in 6 chance of getting the number you want. But if you're rolling 2 dice, you can start kind of figuring out 7's the most common number you're gonna roll with 2 dice, so I should start building a bunch of 7 buildings because it's the highest chance of getting rolled.
Yeah.
So the whole game is just you're rolling dice, building your civilization, getting something off of what your die roll is. You might be even getting stuff on your opponent's turn. But the legacy game is great too because every round every game you complete, you get to the mayor of the winning city gets to open the next box up or see what the next surprise is, and it adds a new element into the game, which I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to ruin it for anyone that does want to play it.
Yeah.
But every little new additional thing the game adds, my wife and I have gone, oh, okay, and it's been super interesting.
Yeah.
And the legacy game actually gives you a choice on some things too, you get double-sided cards, and the game asks you which side of the card you want to play with for the rest of the game, and you have to mark that side of the card.
Okay.
And so then when your whole game is over, you have your own unique version of Machikoro with your own unique deck of cards. So it's great just because you can do it once and then have your own unique game and then invite people over and play a multiple player game of it with your own unique version.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's also super simple to teach and play, and it's just a nice, quick... If you want a relaxing evening of just not having to think too much, it's a great one to pull out.
I haven't played either the Legacy or the regular Machikoro, but that's pretty cool. I like that it creates its own unique game at the end, and it isn't just now I just have this Legacy box. What the heck am I going to do with this? But
either shadow box it or throw it away.
Yeah.
If you haven't played either yet, I would suggest playing the Legacy one, just because you're getting more out of your money. Because you can play it a bunch, and it's going to be unique a bunch of times, and then you have your own unique version of the game.
Yeah. Okay. It's a good number 3.
Yeah. Thank you. What's your number 3?
My number 3. Okay, let me see. I got to move some stuff here. I put it in the reverse order.
Okay. I was about to say, what? I saw something. I saw a box.
Not that one. Okay. This one I play a bunch with Max, and I've played it 2, 3, and 4 player. I like it best at 2.
Okay.
And this is another like hate game where I guess
You
I'd
got a
say
mean
all
list.
the 2 players I really like when it's very opponent heavy or like interaction heavy when it's just
Yeah.
2 of you. Um, so my number 3 is Bunny Kingdom.
All right.
It is just a purely hate draft game at 2 players. Um, 3 and 4 players, you'll have your hand of cards. You'll pick your card, and then you're just gonna pass all of them to the player to your left. And then that's how you're gonna be building out your fiefdom with your little bunnies out in the map. And at a 2 player, it becomes you have your hand, and then you have a side deck that is face down that you don't see, where every turn you're going to draw a card, pick one to keep, and then one to discard from the game. And that's where the hate drafting comes in a lot.
Okay.
And there's been multiple times just playing the game that Max and I are just like looking at our hands going, fuck, I can't let you have this one, but I can't let you have this one, and I want this one. And it's just so much fun and satisfying when you could just like completely block someone, or like, yeah, you just discard it knowing what's there, and you're like, yeah, suck it. Like it's one of those games that I probably will only stick to 2 players from now on.
And do you have the expansion for it too?
I do have
Is-
and it adds like a whole second board and just some more resources to kind of like multiply your points that you're getting. And it's always interesting to see like the point difference between games can swing so much. There can be some games where me or Max will like hit 400, whereas other games we won't even get to over 100. And it's just crazy, just based on how those cards come out and which ones you're selecting and how you're drafting them. It can sway so much. It's pretty crazy.
Do you think the game is, if someone wants to play it, should they? You think it's good enough to play just the base game, or do you think the expansion is like a requirement?
No, I would definitely say play the base game first, and then once you kind of get it down, get the rhythm of how it's going to work, and kind of get some strategy behind it, then bring it in, because then you're just adding a whole bunch of these extra resources that start to just sort of pile on and don't really like help you develop this strategy beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering about that because it feels like a lot of games nowadays have like the video game problem. Not a lot of games, but there are some games where it's like they get released and the game feels fine, but then the expansion gets released and it's like, why wasn't this included in the game as it is? Like, this
Yeah.
makes the game feel complete.
Yeah. This one definitely does not feel that way.
Good.
It's not needed, and honestly, it could almost be seen as one that's adds a little bit too much or like over the top, or it's just kind of like it doesn't really add a necessary or like a really cohesive element to it,
Okay.
which I know you and I have discussed as another topic of expansions and how they're really working, whether they're truly integrating into it properly or not, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about that in some other time. But
It's gonna be an interesting conversation.
yeah. So that was my number 3. My number 2 is also one of like my top favorite games, and another one that I played that actually plays extremely well at all player counts. But I probably had the most fun when it was just you and I playing.
Okay.
And that is big box here, Yokohama. This is such a fantastically done worker placement with such a unique mechanic to it that, like, that from that first gameplay, I was instantly in love with it. Essentially,
Yeah, you and I both played it together as our first play, right?
What's that?
We played our first play together, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But essentially, you're a merchant in Yokohama in Japan as the town is growing, and you have a bunch of workers that you're sending out to the different locations that are out of the like that create the board, and instead of just as simple as just like placing your worker down and that's what you're getting, you're actually placing them down to create movement for your worker, for your merchant, for your president, to do stronger and stronger actions at different locations, and you have to like basically time and manipulate it so that you always have a path for your president to move through, and why I say it's so good at 2, 3, and 4 is because the board just gets larger. So it doesn't... At 2-player, you're not playing at this large board where you can kind of just... You're never really blocking each other or having to find a way to get around somebody. It actually has a smaller board, so there's always that interaction that you have that I really love. And so that's why this one is always in like my top like 5 games, and one that I really love at 2 players.
I think like the blocking mechanic in that game is awesome because you're technically blocking like 2 different ways. With like, because you can't put your president in a location where someone else's president is.
Yeah.
But you can travel through where their president is, and if you do that, you have to pay the opponent money.
Yeah.
Like not to the bank, you pay them directly. And then if you drop a worker where their president is, you also have to pay them money. So you could like find the way that your opponent's routing and then purposely put your president on a spot you know they want to drop workers at just to get money out of them.
Yeah.
That game's great. Yeah, I that game's hard for. I don't think I have like a favorite player count because I've played all player counts too, and I think it would just work so well at all of them.
Yeah. And I think though, like at a larger player count, that some of those technologies become even more important to kind of like break the game a little bit, because it can get a little like that can become a clusterfuck. At 4 people with all the workers everywhere, it can become a little bit, but at least they have those technology portions that really create such a good job at 4 players where you have so much going on, but then also it can be brought down to 2 players where there is still interaction between each other. And so the designer did a fantastic job of working that out to really get balanced, because that's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, and then, of course, Tasty Minstrel Games made the game look beautiful. Like the deluxe version's
and of course,
insane.
The deluxe
it's so
is
nice.
Fantastic. That's always a plus for it.
For sure.
I'm a deluxe whore.
I'm well aware.
Your number 2 and 1.
All right, so my number 2. Well, our number 1s are the same, so we can talk about that together. But my number 2, I wanted to put in, like, the games I picked so far have been relatively, like, light-ish, like, except for, like, Innovation. Innovation can get a bit heady, but it still plays quick.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pick a game that is more of a time investment. Like, if you have, it's just you and your one other person, and you guys want to play, like, a longer game and not just play a few short games.
Yeah.
So I couldn't decide, so I picked 2. So I'll just do like a brief, quick summary on them.
Okay.
So the first one I picked is Fields of Arla.
I was thinking about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's by Uwe Rosenberg, who I have recently come to actually like. I played Agricola a long time ago, early in the hobby, and I absolutely hated it, so I thought I would hate all of Uwe's designs, but I played Fields of Arla and loved it. My wife is super into farming simulator games, like Stardew Valley, so I've been trying to find, like, the perfect farming board game to play with her. So I showed her Fields of Arla, and she really liked it, too. It's just a really solid, like, you feel like you're accomplishing a lot, but not accomplishing enough.
Yeah, yep.
You have Oh, go ahead.
It's one of those that you like start playing and you go, damn, how the hell am I going to do all of this? How am I going to build all these fields? How am I going to move these what are they called? The little water,
Oh, the dikes.
the dikes, yeah.
Yeah.
How am I going to move all this? There's so much to do and not a whole lot of time to actually do it. But then as you go
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, okay, I'm building this up. I get it. Okay, this is feeling good.
It just feels good. Like we played playing this in Agricola like almost back to back. Like I played them like one day, one the next day.
Mhm.
Arla feels more like the game wants you to succeed.
Okay.
And like it gives you all these options of things to do,
Mhm.
and Agricola just hates you and it wants you to lose. So play Fields of Arla if you don't want to get angry. And then it's you have a lot of options too on the board. Like looking at the board the first time, it's very overwhelming with how many options you have.
Classic Uwe.
But classic Uwe, but it's nowhere near as AP inducing as like Feast for Odin.
And I was gonna say that one too is very much the same feeling of like, how the hell am I supposed to fill this entire board with stuff? But yeah.
Yeah. And then like that game and Fields of Arla both, they have like the whole like you have to feed people at the end of the round.
Mhm.
But both those games make it feel like you have to do something royally stupid to not have enough food to feed your people.
Yeah.
Whereas Agricola, you better get enough food because it's not going to give you any.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the cool part about Fields of Arla too is that there's an expansion for it called Tea and Trade, and Tea and Trade adds a couple more interesting mechanics into it, but it also lets you play up to 3 players if you want. But I don't know if I would ever really want to. I think it's just such a good 2-player game. And then because I have to include something from this company, the other 2-player game that's probably the heaviest one out of all of these is Antiquity from Splatterspellen.
Yeah, great. A game that most people are not going to be able to get their hands on.
Yeah, no, it's a bit mean because it's out of print, and I don't think they've announced another reprint of it yet. But out of all the out of print Splatter games, it's probably the cheapest one.
Okay.
But it is very, very, very mean to you as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of interaction between the players until very late to late game.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're spending so much time trying to figure out your own civilization and your own situation that you don't even care what the other person's doing. Like the rule book for the game says to supply your own player screen so people can't see what you're doing.
Yeah.
But when you and I play, you and I never looked up from our own area.
No.
Like we never even thought about looking
yeah.
to peek over to see what they're doing because you're just so wrapped up with your own stuff.
There was no way that I could have. Like you have to be all about you because there's no time to not do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's you will fuck yourself up more than your opponent will.
Yes.
There's so many times you do something and then the next turn you go, oh, I should not have done that.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I'm so fucked.
Yeah, and like the end of every round too, you place pollution on the board, and wherever the pollution is, you cannot build there anymore. So the map legit just becomes tighter and tighter just because you're sitting there and doing nothing. You can do nothing for a round and still make the map shrink because you have to shrink the map.
Yeah.
And I think my favorite part about the game, which it's not really like a staple of Splatter, but this is like probably the coolest part of the game in my opinion, is you pick what your win condition is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have a cathedral that you'll build in your town at some point. When you build a cathedral, you pick a saint to pray to, and whatever saint you pray to, you get a special ability that's really, really, really good, but then you also get your win condition at that point, depending on the saint. Mm-hmm. And it's a really awesome game where you can, every time you play it, pick, like, I'm going to pick a different saint to pray to this time, just see how the game's going to play out.
Yeah.
It's very, very mean, and it's very, very, very
That's
fun.
an understatement, yeah.
Yeah. And Ryan, I think you and I can hold up number 1 at the same time, because I guarantee we have the
All
same
right.
one.
3, 2,
right.
1. Yes. Okay.
Yep.
That's great. And now, so I have only played this as 2-player.
Yeah.
With
I played it at 3.
how was it at 3?
It's still really good,
Okay.
but I still think 2-player is the best.
Okay.
We should talk about what you do in the game first before I explain why, so that way it makes more sense.
Yes.
So you're building you're building the shared map out of tiles, which is one of Ryan's favorite mechanics. Is a tile placement game. But the way you build the map out, it starts out with a 3x3 grid of tiles, and there's 3 different colors, red, blue, yellow, and there's numbers on the tiles that go from 1 to 20. And so you start with them on the board, 1 through 3, 3 of each color. And then around that, there's letters for every column and row, so A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on, all the way around the map. And then you also start with some scientists that give you your opening resources, and the scientists also have a bonus at the bottom. Depending on what action you do, you might get a bonus thing on top of that every time you do that action. So you can either build tiles out by playing a card that shows the letter around the board and swapping that letter with a new tile and moving the circle somewhere else. You can build tiles directly on top of other tiles to claim territory. And then you can just play cards to gain more resources and more stuff.
Yeah.
But the tricky part with the game is you get a hand of cards, you get a hand of 4 cards, you pick one card to use for that round, and then you pass those cards to your opponent.
Yes. So,
and yeah, there we go. There's a nice example of the cards. And the reason why I think Ryan and I agree that this plays better at 2-player, even though he hasn't played it higher than 2-player yet, is because a little bit like what you were saying with Bunny Kingdom, is you see the cards in your hand, and you know your opponent's going to get these, and you know which ones you'll end up getting back then, too.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, having it pass around the table, there's a chance with 4-player you probably won't see... There's a chance you might not see any of the cards you passed to begin with back to you. So the game becomes a really tight... I know Ryan wants both of these cards. Which one should I take now? And which one will he maybe give back to me? And can I risk taking the card that I actually want?
Yeah, it's definitely... You definitely can plan a lot more, which for board games, that's... I plan multiple steps ahead, so...
Yeah.
Knowing that, like, okay, potentially these things will come back to me, I can start thinking, start planning, figure out what I want to do. It really works where, ones where you're like, I don't know that this is coming back around. It's harder to do and becomes just kind of a random play in the moment sort of game, and I'm a little less keen on those.
Yeah, and it becomes interesting, too, of like deciding when you want to build the map out versus when you want to build it vertical. Because the whole point of the game, too, the reason why there's different colored tiles is because if they're orthogonally adjacent to each other and they're the same color, they make a district. And every time you build a tile out, you put an influence marker on there, one per how tall the stack is, to indicate that you own that tile. So then at the end of the game, a huge part of the scoring is you look for anything that's a district, which is 2 or more tiles of the same color. And whoever has the most influence in that district wins the scoring in that district, so they get to score every influence marker there, their own and all the opponents, and then whoever's second place only gets to score their influence markers. So the game's also super mean because you can change the color of a tile. And you can see, like, Ryan has a big majority of this giant red district, but then you can swap one of the one hinging red tile in the middle, you can swap it to a yellow one and then blow the whole district in half.
That district in half, and that's and I can obviously, you'll know, and you can probably talk to it more, of is higher player count. Districts may be like changing a lot more, and you don't feel like you can control it as much as like 2 players, right? You probably can start planning and like strategizing and trying to like control these districts and form a district for yourself a bit more, whereas it feels like 4-player, you're going to less likely to get that card to help build up your district in a way that you want to, where other people now are just, a lot more people are coming around, changing the districts a lot, and it definitely feels, again, to the point of a lot less multi-step strategy and more just playing in the moment and just kind of, what am I dealt with here? What do I need to try to do?
Yeah, I can see that. There's definitely times when I played 3-player that you can see what the other person's trying to do, and you can see like where they're getting the biggest district. I did a lot more blocking districts out in 3-player than I did ever with 2-player.
Okay.
Because I feel like at least for me, it felt like in 3-player, blocking out was really important. Doing it throughout the game, whereas in 2-player you could like build up a strategy and then very late game that's when you decide to switch a district over.
Yeah.
Like you could very end game shut like the opponent out. Whereas 3-player felt like you had to constantly be doing that, which I thought was really really great. But I missed the whole direct back and forth of the cards.
Yeah, it feels like then you have less of a chance to actually like build up an engine that you want to.
Yeah.
Right, because you're like, I gotta do this instead of kind of like developing this certain engine that I'm trying to look for. And I know I really like, as a hate drafts have like blocking each other, but also trying to develop an interesting engine each different time.
Yep.
And so like those two combination are fantastic, and I feel both become really sad. Like I satisfy both of those needs at a 2-player level.
Right. I think we should talk about the cards again really quick, because we forgot to talk about like one of the cooler parts of the game too. Also, did we ever say the name of the game, or did we just hold it up?
We just held it up.
Oh, it's Ginkopolis from
Yes.
Pearl Games. It's out of print right now, but there's a reprint coming end of the year this year.
Oh,
so
dang. Okay.
100% pick it up. Like this is a without question buy this game. But the cool part with the game too is you think that like, well, how do you know what cards you're going to be getting? So there's a deck of cards that you're drawing off of, but the deck builds while you're playing the game.
Yeah.
So when you build, because part of your resources is getting tiles face down, and you get to see what the tile is.
Yep.
Every time you place a tile on the map, there's a card associated with that tile because the numbers match and the colors match. So at the end of when the deck runs out, you go through and take out all the cards from the decks of all the buildings that got built that previous round, and you add those into the deck. So you can see like, oh, someone built the 20 red building. We all know that the 20 red building card gives you 9 points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Who's gonna hunt for that card?
Yep.
And the cool part with 2-player too is every round 7 cards get blind drawn off the top of the deck and put aside face down in the discard pile. So there's a chance you might not even see the card that you're trying to get.
Yep.
And you might think your opponent has it, and then they think you might have it, but it's really sitting in that pile face down, which happened with you and me, because like the last game you and I played, you played a 20 building in like the third turn or
That's right, I
something.
did, yeah.
And we didn't see that card until like the second to last turn.
Yeah.
It kept getting shuffled out.
Yeah. Yeah. But a fantastic choice by both of us for a number 1 2-player game to play at 2 players.
I think in general too that game's in our top 10 for both of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's that good.
Pretty much that first day that I played the first time, I immediately went out and was searching for it.
Yeah.
So
so worth it.
that wraps up our games we think are great at 2-player while we're stuck in quarantine with this dumb COVID.
You better copyright that title. Someone's gonna steal that. It's too catchy.
perSPECtive. Thank you for
I hope you
listening
make
to
that the
our
title.
perSPECtive. Thank you for
You
joining
didn't make
us.
that the actual YouTube video title. It has to be that long.
So, yeah, this is my co-host Keegan. Where can people follow you?
Yeah, definitely add us on our Specular pages. So Specular Board Games on Instagram, and then specularbg on Twitter, and then Specular Board Games on YouTube as well. Right now, there is a video up for Awari Deluxe, a review that Ryan and Max did. And then for me personally, Foxbox Games on Instagram, Box BOCKS, because someone had box spelled properly already.
We'll put that in the description below.
Yeah, we'll add it.
And you can follow my personal account at ryan.gebi, GEBI. And we don't quite have our topic for the next video, but we're putting together a list. Going to be doing this weekly, so have a look out. And comment, like, and subscribe. Let us know what you thought. If there's any other 2-player games you think would be great for quarantine, let us know.
And if there's anything you want to hear us talk about,
Yeah,
definitely suggest that too.
and if you're on social media a lot and wanna come join us for a perspective for a topic, we'd love to have you on. We love meeting other board game enthusiasts, addicts like ourselves. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. This is our goodbye ASMR.
Brian, I think this is a bad way to end it. I don't know if they're gonna.
How do we end this?
I'm gonna sneeze really loud into the microphone.
Okay, cool. Do that.
I can't sneeze.
Son of a bitch.
It was a lie. It was a whole lie.
And we're up.